Over the last few months, Sunila's done multiple fun trips. I did trips with my family, went on a few work trips. And as you would have guessed, over the next few weeks, we are going to talk about all of these destinations. So you mentioned different places. You mentioned Fairbanks, Talkeetna, Denali National Park, Anchorage, and a few others. Where would you like to start this episode today?
I think let's start at the very top. It's kind of, a good place to start, which is Fairbanks. And then we can keep moving down into Anchorage as we go ahead.
Okay, so what's in Fairbanks?
So Neil, Fairbanks is, this place where they discovered gold. And you can actually, like I went in and we went to this place called Gold Daughters. And I was also panning for gold. So you feel like one of those discoverers from the 1800s going in. You go in there, you shovel up a whole pile of dirt, take it into like a trough.
Yeah.
Then you come in and they actually teach you how to pan for gold. So you have this water out there and then you put it in and you're so scared to let go because you feel like you've paid for it, right?
Yeah.
And then the whole mud is just going out and she's like, just be firm. And I was so scared. I said, I will lose all my gold. And she said, no, keep doing. And then after a point, you get the hang of it. You have to keep washing that dirt. And then what remains in the pan is little specks of gold. So it's stunning that even today the land has gold in it.
And what's this experience called again?
So it's called gold panning.
Okay.
You can probably done it in Australia before. But in Alaska, you can do it in multiple places. And I really enjoyed doing it in Fairbanks. What I also did was, what do you do with those little specks that you have, right?
Yeah.
You can't really do much. But they had this thing where they would put it into a little locket for you and then you can carry that gold back with you. So it was a nice little souvenir to come back with.
Wow, that's super interesting. Now, just thinking about you being in Fairbanks, in my research, it told me that Fairbanks is probably one of the best places to also view the northern lights when the northern lights are there. But during this time of the year, you probably had day all through, right? Like what was what were the hours of the day like?
Yeah, the most exciting thing was I was there on summer solstice, which is June 21st.
The longest day.
The longest day. And they had a Midnight Sun Festival out there.
Okay.
So Fairbanks is where you'll really see the stark contrast between a day all day and no day at all, right? So, and when in winter it's dark is when you would see the northern lights. So Fairbanks would be a great place to go and see northern lights. We'll come back to that. But when we went this time, it was like I couldn't sleep. So I kept taking photos and checking the time on the phone because it's like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., but the light was still there. And the good part is then you can go about, doing a lot of things. You can go and explore the city, and there were these little stalls and like a little fun fair put up all across the street. And everyone was walking. It was all pedestrians. So we were out till really late at night. The other exciting thing we did there was, and this was my first baseball match ever in person. So this was in Fairbanks. And why it is special is they don't need any artificial light throughout the night to play it. So it starts off late. We did realize later that you have to be really early, otherwise you end up standing there all the time.
Okay.
But it was still a lot of fun. And to, it felt like being a part of the local community and rooting for them. And Maria Guide, one of the teams was her team from Anchorage and the other team was local. So we kept shifting between our loyalties, but it was a lot of fun and that was really exciting. Fairbanks is about 6 hours from the Arctic Circle.
Okay.
North of Fairbanks is Arctic Circle, and there is also a small town called North Pole. It's not the North Pole, but it's called North Pole. And you can actually go there and cross the Arctic Circle. So some people love to do that as well. But I would say, just being in Fairbanks was good enough. Now coming to your other point about the Northern Lights. So when you go in winter, I think what you can do is there is, because of the way the land is, there are hot springs there. So Chena Hot Springs are something, just imagine sitting in a hot spring and watching the Northern Lights. That would be one of the best things to do. So I would heavily recommend that. So if you want to watch the Northern Lights, you want to be away from everybody into the wilderness, Fairbanks is where you should go.
Yeah, I think there's a misconception, right? That people think that the Northern Lights can only be viewed from Europe, the Scandinavian countries. But if you really think about it, Greenland is one place, Canada is another place, Alaska is another one. Where, Russia is also there. So, how do you get
anywhere above the Arctic Circle? And then you have the Southern Lights as well, right? Like last year, people are seeing from New Zealand, parts of Australia, Tasmania. So,
I quite like the fact that you mentioned so many bucket list things out here, because on many bucket lists there is viewing the Northern Lights. On many bucket lists is also going and watching a baseball game, because a different sport similar to cricket but not really cricket is definitely something I also have on my bucket list. Now, from Fairbanks, next place, what comes to your mind from your trip?
So we came down to Denali, but before we go to Denali, Neil, in Fairbanks, I also saw something which I think is an engineering marvel of the modern world, and it kind of made me think that Alaska is so rich in its natural mineral resources. So you have the Trans-Alaskan Pipeline. Okay, and this is more than 800 miles. About 400 miles are underground, and about 420 miles or odd are above the ground. And where it is above the ground, you can actually see it. So we went in to see this the pipeline, because it carries some $1 million of petrol every minute as you stand there and you're watching it flow. And then you have the whole route of how the oil flows. So from Prudhoe Bay, which is right in the north, the Alaskan pipeline flows down for 800 miles. So that was also pretty stunning to see that.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because the story goes that Alaska, because if you look at the map, there is the United States in North America. To the north of that is Canada. And if you move a little west, that's when there's Alaska. So people often wonder that, okay, how is Alaska a US territory when it's so disconnected from the US, right? And they say that Alaska was actually Russian land, which was bought by the United States much, much long ago. And if I'm not wrong, they paid something of around $10 million.
$7.2 million. So it was called Seward's Folly. So that's like what, 70 crore rupees or something? Maybe the price of a house in Mumbai today, right? Yeah, you have to account. But I love to think of it that in the price of a luxury flat in Mumbai, you bought this whole land of Alaska, right? For me.
I mean, mineral rich land, I would say.
Right? And at that point, the Secretary of State, William Seward, bought it. And they thought it was a mistake. Like it was a big mistake. He's just bought a land, like this whole, they said, you're just buying ice. You're not buying anything else. And they called it Seward's Folly for long. But in 1896 is when they discovered gold. And then 1968 is when they discovered oil. And after that,
the rest is history.
Right? Stunning.
Yeah, I mean, it may be disconnected from the US, but it contributes so much to the GDP of the United States.
In fact, Neil, like when we move towards Denali and then below Talkeetna, I just remembered, you have the Matsu Valley. And the Matsu Valley is a very fertile and rich land. And you have a cabbage or a broccoli the size of a human.
Oh, wow.
So it's like 150 pounds was the biggest broccoli that you could buy there. So just imagine, because there's light all day, right? 24 hours, chlorophyll, sunlight. So you have these huge vegetables that grow there. So there's so many stories that you keep seeing when you go there.
You mentioned Talkeetna. And you had told me that Talkeetna is also something that we should talk about on the podcast. Why? What's so special about Talkeetna?
So, if you're talking of Talkeetna, I'll talk of Denali and Talkeetna together, because both these places are places where you can go and experience Denali National Park, and you can see Mount Denali from both places. Some of the experiences are similar, and when you're doing the railroad, then Denali and Talkeetna are the two stops when you come in from Fairbanks down to Anchorage. While on the topic of trains, Fairbanks to Anchorage takes about 12 hours. So it's not about going fast in a train. It's about slowing down, enjoying the scenery, seeing the mountains come up, seeing moose, seeing wildlife, bears, everything from the train, right? So, my first stop was Denali, and Denali I felt was something created by a lot of the cruise ships as well. It's a small town, but it's quite a touristy town. Open only in summer. So if you really want to go to Denali National Park, go in summer. And then you can do rafting, you can do hiking, you can do fishing, you can do all these wonderful things that you've thought of. We went rafting in the Chena River, and it was really special. But what I also realized was there can be a lot of forest fires. So this time when we went in, there was a fire raging and they were controlling it. So you have to always be flexible, because if the road was blocked, probably means I have to go back to Fairbanks and then fly down. But Denali was quite nice. So you can go in and you can go to the glacier in Denali, and then hopefully the views are clear, and then you see this beautiful view everywhere. Now, when you come further down from Denali, you come to Talkeetna.
Okay.
Why I love Talkeetna was, I think it is a place where the original Alaskan people, the Inuits and the other, races, all of them actually lived there. So there is a strong, small community sense that you see here. And one of the funny things that we found was actually, okay, do you know who the mayor of this town was?
Who?
It was Mr. Stubbs, a cat.
Oh, wow.
So a cat was the mayor of this town for 20 years. And then the story we learned was that when they were voting for who should be the mayor, everybody was so fed up with the kind of people who were standing up that they started saying that write in on the vote that Mr. Stubbs the cat, and they actually voted for the cat to be
And
the
that's
mayor.
how the cat became the mayor.
The cat became the mayor for 20 good years until he died in 2017. But they have this thing saying Mr. Stubbs the cat. So I love Talkeetna because you walk in, you meet people. I actually met somebody who had come to India, and then she was telling me stories of how she actually ended up wearing a sari and stuff like that. So you see, you meet and talk to people who are actually Alaskan. And I would say, if you want to pick up some unique souvenirs or gifts, do it in Talkeetna. Even if you buy it in other places in Alaska, look for made in Alaska, because I think that really, it makes sense to buy something that comes from the land, right? So I picked up a birch syrup, and it's very similar to a maple syrup. We know maple syrup from Canada, which comes from the maple trees. So here, similarly, you have birch trees. And then you can extract the sap and then turn it into this amazing syrup that you have with pancakes or whatever you want. And even the ice cream was so amazing. So, there's this thing in Talkeetna. They say that, and Maria, who was our guide, who was walking with us, and she said, oh, the ice cream shop's open. That means summer's here. So that's how they kind of relate that if it is cold enough to have ice cream, then summer's here. And then she said, oh, she's back. We should go have ice cream there. So I picked up that. I picked up some Alaskan made earrings. So, made by the Alaskan people. And a lot of things that are made from bones of animals and fur and all of those. And so the Alaskans are allowed to hunt the originals, the others can't. So they have the license to do that. So then they use that, or even, it's nature. So whatever's remaining, the sustainability, they will try and use all of that. So you get a lot of these things out there, and definitely makes sense to pick up these souvenirs there.
Awesome. There was this one thing running in my mind because you mentioned Denali. Like, we often hear that Canada, Alaska, you'll have encounters with brown bears or something like that. So did you have any wildlife encounters like this?
Thankfully, I did not run into a bear, but I had a most delightful encounter, and this was in Denali. We had some time before we boarded the train, so we went off on a hike. And as we were hiking, there was no one. It was just us, and we were going by, and then there was a lake in the middle of it. And then we just sat there, we just wanted to take in nature, because these are rare instances for us, coming from busy cities. Because Alaska, I think, has this whole thing of having the biggest land, but the least amount of people. So you are in wild, in wilderness, in nature. So we were sitting by the lake, and we were just talking, and suddenly, we noticed that there was a moose and a baby moose. And then they had come in there to have water, and they were there. And then after some time, I think everybody got used to each other, and they were just peacefully sitting there. So we ran into some wildlife like that. And this was not in a zoo, not in a cage, but to just see it like that was really amazing. I think if you go in more into the wilderness, you can, see bears and other animals as well. So they always suggest that if you're going on a wilderness hike or a trek, keep a bear spray at hand. But there are certain rules you follow, and then you're safe pretty much. But you've probably seen this iconic photo of the bears catching the salmon from the river, right? Straight from the river, which is jumping.
The salmon are swimming upriver.
The salmon are swimming upriver, and the bear just catches it with the hand. So, things like that can be seen in the Katmai area.
Okay.
And that is more in the south.
And you can witness the bears catching the salmon.
You can, of course, day by day, as human population increases and more, if it goes into over tourism, we will see that the bears will recede more and more inside. But at least as of now, you have to be a little patient, like with everything in nature, but you can see it for sure.
Awesome. Now, the next place on my list is Anchorage. Now, I'm a plane enthusiast. I love planes.
I want to stop you there. And, since you said plane, Another thing you must do, either from Talkeetna or Denali, is take a flight seeing tour.
Okay.
So you have these
what is
small
flight seeing?
little planes that you get into a 10-seater, and then you are flying over all the glaciers and the mountains. So I think that 1 hour was just amazing, because you're seeing Mount Denali, you're seeing the other mountains, you're seeing the glaciers, and it's just white everywhere. You're just on top of everything. So it was quite
And
special to do
everyone has a
that.
window seat.
Everybody has a window seat. So yeah.
Yeah, what's doing flight
Actually,
seeing,
one
right?
of
Yeah.
us in the group, she wanted to sit up ahead by the pilot. So when they asked who will come, it's not like the helicopter. And she went in there, and we are not as tall as the Americans, right? So
Yeah,
she really had a restricted view, while the rest of us had a greater view from behind. So helicopters take the front seat. Planes, maybe the seat behind is better.
I think, yeah, I quite agree. And nowadays, I've started sitting at the back of regular commercial planes also, because generally, if you want to sit at the front, you have the wing that comes
Yeah,
in, and
and
then you can't click great photos,
True.
or aerial photos, as we call it. So yeah, I love
Yeah.
planes, and
Yes.
the next place on my list is Anchorage.
Mhm.
Right now, back in the day when planes couldn't fly from, say, the coast of Japan to LA or San Francisco because of the huge Pacific Ocean, there used to be a fueling stop in Anchorage, right? Today, Anchorage is used as a meeting point for Vladimir Putin and
Yes.
Donald Trump also. But at the same time, Anchorage is also one of the busiest airports in the world when it comes to cargo shipments.
Right.
But what is there for a traveler to see in Anchorage?
Neil, let me put it this way. If I didn't have so much time, I would probably just do Anchorage and one place along with
That's
it.
it.
Either Talkeetna or Denali. If I really had to cut short everything into 3 or 4 days,
Yeah.
then I would 100% touch Anchorage. One, it is the gateway to Alaska. So you have good flights, good hotels. You even have shopping malls. Like, that's the last thing you want out there. But in case you've forgotten something, or you want to just pick up, or you don't have time anywhere else in the US, then you have shopping out there. Very nice restaurants and a range of restaurants. So we had a Nepali restaurant, we had a Mexican restaurant. There's lots of restaurants out there. But to top it all, you have 6 mountain ranges that surround Anchorage.
Oh, wow.
So wherever you look, the view is great. Wherever you drive, the view is great. So, for all your road trips, this is a great starting point. In addition, Neil, I mentioned that you can kind of go to Alaska all through the year and you get different experiences. So in summer, you have the midnight sun, you have long days, you can do hiking, trekking, all of that. In winter, you have the northern lights. And also in March, around the first week, there is something very special that happens, which starts from Anchorage to Nome, to a place called Nome. So this is about 1,000 miles, and back from Nome to Anchorage. This is called the Iditarod race.
Okay.
Okay. So we mentioned wildlife, we mentioned animals. Another animal which I think everybody loves and is really special to Alaska is the Alaskan husky.
Yeah.
So the husky dogs, and we managed to actually see it. I forgot to mention that in Fairbanks we also did a riverboat cruise, and this riverboat cruise is kind of traditional, got a little vintage feel to it. And when it's going, they take different stops. And on the banks, we could see dogs, like husky dogs, just running, and the excitement, because they love people.
Yeah.
So when you come in, they are like, you hear their enthusiasm. And so there's something called dog mushing that happens here, which is nothing but a race.
Okay.
So what they do is they take the sled dogs, and then they teach them to drive the sleds, and they take them around. So historically, Anchorage to Nome, because like you mentioned, it was the cargo and the most busiest airport. So vaccines and important mail and everything else would only reach Anchorage. Now, to take them further inland into Alaska, you had to use dogs and you had to use sleds. So this was like the mail system that worked. And then to commemorate that, they have turned it into a dog race. So every March, there is the Iditarod dog race, and expert mushers, they call mushers, can probably do it in 8 to 9 days. It's minus 50 degrees centigrade, the weather, when you're doing that, and you're alone with your dogs. So you have to have enough, the grit and the, stamina to do it. And the others maybe take about 2 weeks as well. So it's more about completing the race more than anything. And we met somebody who had done the race, because we went to his husky dog farm, and he was saying it's something you can't explain in words. You really have to experience the wilderness, the dogs and you, like that's it. So that was pretty stunning.
I quite like the passion with which you talk about these experiences. So one question popped up in my mind. You did the cruising experience
Yeah.
many years ago. Would anyone have a chance to do all of these experiences if they only decide to take an Alaskan cruise?
Actually, you really can't do all of these, because with the cruise you have stops. You have Juneau, you have Sitka. So you can stop there and get into the coastal towns. You have different experiences. I would say the advantage of cruising is probably you're closer to glaciers.
Yeah.
Because you're right through that, you're passing through the channel where you can see the glacier, you can see Hubbard, you can see the other glaciers as well. So if you want to see glaciers, then the cruise is a better option. But if you want to really experience the wilderness, then you have to do it by road or you have to do it by rail and come inside. Best part is, Neil, you can actually combine both. So many people also do the cruise for 7 days and then do a road trip for 7 days as well. Where I saw the glaciers on this trip was in Whittier. And Whittier, again, you go from Anchorage. And what was funny was you have one tunnel that connects Anchorage to Whittier. And through this tunnel, the cars also pass through the same tunnel and the train also passes through the same tunnel.
Okay.
So you have to wait. If you come into the time where the train is going, you really have to time yourselves well. Otherwise, you're staying back in Whittier. And from Whittier, we did the Prince William Sound cruise, where we could see glaciers and we could see wildlife and seals and a whale even. So we actually even saw a whale and carving, and it was a really beautiful, stunning day.
That's awesome. So would you say that if I'm doing a cruise and also this road plus rail experience, around 14 days would be enough for an adventure like this?
2 weeks is a good time.
And if we are flying from India, which airport do we fly into?
So you have to fly into Anchorage. It depends how you are taking the flights. If you're doing something else in the US, then maybe you'll go into the US, make it your base, and then fly in from the US. Alaska actually really connects very well to Hawaii. So if you're thinking of a honeymoon trip, then a beautiful combination would be to combine Alaska, Hawaii, and then come into the West Coast and come back. So that's another way. You can fly in from Europe as well. So Anchorage does connect. Some flights connect, I think, to Frankfurt. So you can come in from there. But I would say connecting Canada or the US along with Alaska really makes a lot of sense.
Awesome. So we've discussed a lot about Alaska over the last 30 or 35 odd minutes. Do you think we have missed out on anything that you would just comes to your mind? Oh yeah, we should have talked about this.
Not really, Neil. I mean, you can keep talking about Alaska. I think for the next 1 hour also, if I keep talking, there'll be stories. But just bear in mind that the trains, you have the summer train and then you have the Aurora winter train as well.
Oh, wow.
So you have to kind of be really particular of when you want to go. I would say select your duration and your time and then be flexible, because this is wild nature. You're getting into wild nature. And when I even say the word wild, actually one thing that comes to my mind is Into the Wild. I don't know if you've seen that movie about
a long time ago.
Yeah, and he's just so fed up with humanity that he leaves everything and he goes into the wild to live on his own. And he went into Fairbanks and then he went into the wilderness and he found an abandoned bus, and he actually lived in the bus for some more than 100 days. And that is a real life story turned into a film. So when you go to Fairbanks, you can actually see that in a museum now. You can see that bus has been restored, and it just makes you feel pensive, thoughtful, and questioning humanity and wondering, I hope we are taking good care of nature. But the good part is in Alaska, you see that everywhere, that the true Alaskans, they are really conserving nature. They are trying to keep things sustainable, and they are so friendly. Like the hotels were kind of basic, I would say, but the people and their warmth make up for everything else. Like I think the best time there was meeting people and knowing their stories.
Awesome. I think we like discussing movies, so Into the Wild would be something that you would definitely recommend watching before you go, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Sunila, for taking us on this deep dive of Alaska. At the start of the episode, I always used to think of Alaska as, okay, chalo, Alaskan cruise karte hai, right? And I guess you have managed to change my perception, and I'm assuming anyone who's been with us this far into the episode is also thinking about doing the cruise, rail, and road experience altogether. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for listening to this episode.